Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you just after what's been a very interesting press conference today with Mikel Arteta and certainly with Granit Xhaka. Some really interesting comments from Xhaka. He's always great when he does sit down and face the media, and he was again today, being very, very honest on lots of stuff about the online abuse he receives, his family receives, his feelings towards the Arsenal fans at the moment, and that relationship that's safe to say has been pretty rocky between him and some of the sections of the fan base anyway. And he's got some fairly strong words as always with Granit, and I will get to that later on in this video. But before we get to what Granit had to say, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about Mikel Arteta. And he delivered some important team news ahead of the game against Benfica tomorrow night, and also spoke a little bit about the importance of that match, about Aubameyang and things like that. So I'll get onto all of those as well. And we'll start today's video with the team news, and very, very good news about Thomas Partey. Surprising even about Thomas, who's he's very close according to Mikel Arteta. Now, Thomas Partey's representatives have perhaps been a little bit more cautious about this, but he has returned to full training yesterday from what we understand, and Mikel saying now Thomas is very close. He's got a final test today in training. Today is obviously Wednesday. If he's feeling good, he will be available to play the match. So really good news about Thomas Partey. I think even if he does pass his fitness test, I'd be very, very surprised if Thomas Partey starts for Arsenal and Benfica, despite how important that game is. I think you're not going to just throw Thomas straight into it after a few weeks off. Obviously, he hasn't played since the Aston Villa game. A hamstring injury as well. You can't afford to take any risks. And let's face it, we've seen Thomas Partey break down too many times since coming back from injury, since he arrived from Arsenal in the summer from Atletico. And now we really need to get Thomas Partey back and playing regularly between now and the end of the season. So you don't want to risk him now. So even if he does pass these medical tests that he's going to have today at London Colney, the squad flies out later. If he does pass those tests and flies out with the squad, then you would still expect that he will be on the bench at best tomorrow night. And Arsenal will be looking further down the line in terms of getting him back into the starting 11. Because like I say, you don't want to take any risk with Thomas, but certainly good news. Very quick when you consider this a hamstring injury. He went off against Aston Villa, so it's been 3 games since then. Surprising that he's back this quickly from a hamstring problem, but hopefully he passes this medical test today and he's back involved tomorrow night in some capacity. But if not, certainly for the game against Leicester at the weekend will be a big boost for Arsenal, who are certainly expecting Thomas to be out for a little bit longer than this. Elsewhere regarding team news, only really revolves around Rob Holding and that head injury sustained against Manchester City towards the end. Arsenal did use a new concussion sub protocol in that game, bringing on David Luiz for that one. And because of that, and because of the protocols they now have to follow, because of the concussion sub, Rob Holding will not be involved tomorrow night. That game is going to come too soon for him. Mikel Arteta saying regarding Rob, he's not available. He had a concussion. We tested him and he's completely fine. But obviously now we need to follow the protocols and he won't be able to travel. So going to be a while, I think. I'm not sure exactly the days that they have to pass, but I think possibly the weekend's going to come too soon for Rob Holding as well, because of the concussion protocols that Arsenal have to follow. Arsenal obviously don't have a game next midweek, so it could well be the following weekend that we see Rob Holding back available again. But the good news is that after that head injury that he sustained against Man City, that Mikel Arteta saying that he is okay. But other than that, unless something happens in training and we don't know about, Arsenal going into this game against Benfica with a pretty much fully fit squad to choose from, and that is very, very good news at this stage of the competition. Obviously, you're going to take fatigue into the scenarios as well, so it's not just about actual injuries, it's about how players are feeling, but still you're expecting it's going to be a very, very strong team that plays against Benfica tomorrow night, and that is very, very important given the importance of the game. Wouldn't expect to see too many changes from the side that started against Benfica in the first leg, given that everyone is okay. You'd certainly think Kieran Tierney's going to come back in at left back. But other than that, you think it's going to be very, very similar to that first leg team, when Arsenal was certainly the better side. And you would hope if they repeat that type of performance tomorrow night in Athens, then this time they will take the chances that come their way and they will put Benfica to bed and progress into the next round of the competition. But it's certainly all to play for both sides. And speaking about that, with Mikel. I asked him, is this the biggest game of Arsenal's season, given how the league has gone and given how important the Europa League is now for Arsenal? Is this the biggest game of the season? He said, look, it's a really big season and a really important game mentally and confidence-wise. It's going to dictate if we're in another competition or not for a few more weeks. This is really what we need. It's a really tough opponent. It's a Champions League team. We've been playing in these types of games for many years with a manager of huge experience. For us tomorrow, it's the final. And he's absolutely right. It is. Certainly the recent defeats in the league, the Aston Villa defeat and the Wolves defeat in particular, have added so much more importance on this Europa League campaign now for Arsenal, because it's looking more and more unlikely that they're going to get a European spot in the Premier League, given they're now 11th after Leeds' win last night. So that Europa League is so important. It's a route back into the Champions League. It's a potential competition they can win. They're going to have to play very, very well, judging by some of the other sides that are in it, certainly the English sides, but they can win it. But they've got to make sure they get through these sort of rounds. At the moment, they came unstuck against Olympiacos at this stage last season. They can't afford for that to happen again. If they do, then the pressure is really going to be on Mikel Arteta. The spotlight's certainly going to be on him. Really disappointing league campaign, sitting 11th at the moment, out of the FA Cup early. And if they go out of the Europa League again at the first knockout stage, then understandably the spotlight is going to fall on Mikel Arteta. And I asked him that. I said, are you feeling the pressure because of the importance of the game and what it could mean for you should Arsenal go out? And he said, I always feel that it is on me, the pressure. Every time you're playing in a competition, you can go out, you know the consequences. And with this club, the aim is always to win the competition you're in. So it doesn't really change much. So Mikel Arteta admitting there that, the pressure is certainly on him, but he accepts that, and it's just what comes with the territory when you're an Arsenal manager. It's a big game for Arsenal tomorrow. We'll try and pop on tomorrow and do a video in the morning looking at my predicted 11 and looking at the game a little bit more in focus, some of the key areas of that match, how Arsenal can make sure they get the job done. Elsewhere in the press conference, I asked Mikel about Aubameyang and the criticism that Jamie Redknapp threw at him after Sunday's game, which I thought was a little bit harsh. Redknapp saying that he's lost his superpower, that he looks like he's past his best, and he gets bullied now. And I asked him what he thought about those comments, and Mikel said, I didn't see the comments, I've heard about them, and I'm here to support every single player, and that is what I try to do all the time. I try to give them the best possible advice when they have a difficult moment, stay right behind them, and that's what we try to do always. I think the best way to talk is always on the pitch. 7 days ago when he scored a hat-trick, and he could have scored 4 or 5 against Leeds, he was again the main man. He could have scored a hat-trick against Benfica easily with his qualities, and it would have been very different. At the end of the day, it's about putting the ball in the back of the net for him, and that's how he gets joy. And I would not be at all surprised if Aubameyang shuts up some of the critics again tomorrow night and pops up with the all-important goals that get Arsenal through to the next round. Yes, he's had a bad week. Certainly, I'm not going to absolutely blast him for his performance against Man City. That was a very, very difficult game, and Man City were on top, and he had to feed on scraps. But his touch was poor at times, and he didn't have his best performance. But it was a difficult game. Certainly, the Benfica match, he should have done better. He should have taken those chances. He knows that, and another day he absolutely would have done. And I won't bet against him popping up and getting the goals that send Arsenal through on Thursday night. Right, let's talk a little bit about Granit Xhaka now, shall we? This was a really good press conference from Granit Xhaka. As I said at the start of the video, he is always well worth it when you sit down and you talk to Granit. So many footballers just give you stony face responses nowadays and aren't really worth the time talking to, because it's all so media trained and sterile. But Xhaka is the absolute opposite of that. He speaks his mind, he speaks the truth. That's the kind of character he is, and he was great today in the press conference. If you haven't seen it, you've got to go and watch it at some point today if you can get down and sit down in front of the TV and see what he had to say, because it's very, very important stuff as well, because it was a lot of it was focused around the online abuse issue in football, which is a really important issue, I think, not just for football but wider society, in terms of how people speak to people on social media especially. It's wrong, needs to stop, absolutely needs to stop. The abuse of players, of celebrities, of public figures, not just abuse of them, but abuse of their families, threats to their families. It's vile and it needs to stop. I've spoken about this before. I don't understand how people can send that type of abuse, can sit there and actually type it. All the time they're hiding behind their profiles on the computer, and they would never say that to the player's face or to the celebrity's face. And anyway, Granit was asked about this, and he was asked about the abuse, because it's been I think it was a Sky investigation uncovered that Arsenal season ticket holders had sent racial abuse to Xhaka recently, and he was asked about it, and he said, if I showed the others what others write, I think I'd have to close my social media, and everyone would have to close their social media. I say before, and I'll say it now and in the future as well, it's only about me. I am the guy who's on the pitch. It is not my wife. It is not my little one. It is not my family. So if you want to criticise someone, no problem. Criticise me like a person, like a player, but don't make other people involved, because they have nothing to do with my job. And that's absolutely true. I mean, look, he's not saying don't criticise me as a footballer. Fine, if you've got an opinion about me on football, you can say that, you can criticise. But don't step over the line, don't make it personal, and certainly don't talk about the family. It's his job at the end of the day. Yes, he's a public figure. Yes, he gets paid an awful lot of money. But there's no... just because of that, you can't just think it's open season and criticise someone and send threats to family and things like that, racially abuse someone. It's just bang out of order. And I know that the vast majority of people know this, but there is a minority who just think they can say what they want on social media, and it just blows my mind every single time when I see some of the stuff that people have to take. He was asked, look, is the problem getting worse? Is this something you've experienced that is getting worse? And he said, the problem is only if you lose, then it's a big problem. It's not a problem when you win. If you lose, everyone hates you and everyone is writing things. It's not possible to understand how they can write something like this, I wish I could meet the people who write me the things, to sit with them eye to eye and ask them, why are you writing things like this? Not only for me personally, because that happens a lot in the last few weeks, but only to know what he is feeling in this moment when he writes something like this. It is not acceptable. So you have to open your eyes and look after this a lot, because if you kill the football like this, if you start to speak about a player or their families or things like this, it's a real heartfelt stuff from Granit Xhaka. And I think none of us can really sit there and think exactly what it's like for him when he opens up his social media and just sees message after message after message of online abuse coming his way. And what that must make him feel, especially when it steps over into the, bringing his family and his little child into it. And it's, it happens. It does happen. I've seen it. And it's just totally and utterly wrong. And it's, fair play for Granit speaking out. And it's not just him. It's footballers, all the time now are sharing their horror stories of what they have to see on social media. And so fair play to him. And, Granit is brilliant about this sort of stuff, and he said, look, they are not supporters of my club. I do not see them as supporters of my club. To support the club, they have to be there if we lose, win or draw. Of course you can criticise and say what you want about football, but not about the person, not about the family. If one guy is a season ticket holder at a club and speaks like this about their own players, I don't think he needs respect from our side or from other people. It's exactly what I've been saying, and I'm in full support of Granit Xhaka for coming out and speaking like this. So let me know what you think about it all, because I think it's a really important topic, a discussion. I think the only way we're going to get rid of it on social media, on things like YouTube, certainly on Twitter, Instagram, is by getting it out in the open, forcing people to make changes to how the social media companies, for one, have to take responsibility, but also you can't just put the responsibility on the social media channels. Certainly, people, the people sending this abuse, they have to take responsibility as well and realise that it's not okay. And until that happens, then it's always going to be a prevalent issue, and it's something that needs to be sorted in wider society as well. Just lastly on Granit Xhaka, I thought this was quite interesting. He was asked, about his performances and about his about Thomas Partey and how he's become a really key influential figure under Mikel Arteta, which he has. I think this season, certainly since his red card against Burnley earlier in the season, since he's come back, I think we've seen arguably the best Granit Xhaka since he arrived at Arsenal. I think he's been really, really good, not just with Partey when he's been excellent, but even when Partey's been injured, I think he's been great with Dani Ceballos. And he was asked, is it easier for you, given your frosty relationship with some of the Arsenal fans, that you're actually playing in a empty stadium? Has that helped with your performances, not having the fans there? But he says, no, not really. I'm not a guy who is scared or afraid to play in front of our fans. Never, ever. I love the club. I respect the people around the team as well. I wish we could play with the fans, because they would push us on more and more. The situation is what it is, and hopefully things will change quickly as possible to have fans back and work together to see we're improving and we want to take the next step as a club. That is what I wish. So interesting stuff, I think, there from Granit, because I think a lot of people would have thought, especially given his relationship with some of the Arsenal fans, that he probably would like playing in an empty stadium, but it's not the case. And just before I go, just lastly on Granit, and his comments about him and Thomas Partey, given that Thomas now, hopefully, as we heard earlier on this video, is getting much closer to fitness tomorrow and could even be involved tomorrow night, but certainly at the weekend. He was asked about Partey and the relationship they've shown on the pitch, and he said, "It's a shame we have not played a lot together because he's had 2 big injuries, but the games we have played, I think he looks really good, really solid. We are very good together, not only off the pitch, but not only on the pitch, but off it as well. He's a lovely guy. He's improving our team because he can see how much experience he has at this level, and this is good for my game as well. The other midfielders in the team are improving step by step, and the important thing is we can see and feel we're improving it together. Let's see what we can take from the end of the season." I think certainly, I think Dani Ceballos has played pretty well recently since he's come in Partey's absence. But certainly that midfield partnership of Partey and Granit Xhaka has looked very, very encouraging in the fleeting times we've seen them play together this season. And once Partey is back fully fit, I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops between now and the end of the season, because they certainly bring the best out of each other. They seem to anyway, and I think they make others around them look better as well. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. But I do, as I said, urge you to go and watch the full press conference if you can of Granit Xhaka, because I think it raises some really, really important points and it is well worth a watch. Right, that's it from me today, everyone. My review of today's press conference. Thank you very much for watching. As always, like I said, I will try and put back on in the morning to sort of preview the Benfica game a little bit more, give my predicted 11, that sort of things. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Please do head over to my social media account. Check me out on Twitter. It's at Charles_Watts. You'll see links to stories from today's press conference that you can also find on goal.com, talking about the latest team news and also what Granit Xhaka has had to say. Thank you for watching, everyone. Appreciate your time as always, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.